My life story shifted the moment that Sophie and Peter, my birth father, gave me up. That is a profound chapter shift in my life. Because I went to live with the Laws, my life became this life.
In Yorkton, Saskatchewan, Alvin Law's parents decided the best way to get their armless son to cope with life was to turn his toes into fingers. For hours, Alvin was given manual tasks to perform with his feet.
Now, granted, having no arms isn't exactly a rather simple disability. It's a very complicated disability. And I'd be lying if I didn't say it was a lot of work. A lot of work. A lot of time spent by myself, being very lonely, being very afraid, being very frustrated. But I think it was the character that was built by my parents, especially by my parents, that allowed me to not really think that I was all that different.
It's not an easy thing to get dressed, but again, it goes back to the basic theory of my life, and that is, do I have someone look after me, or do I look after myself? But more than anything, I think it's a mindset, you know, that, okay, there's a lot of people in our world that have way bigger problems than I have, so that I have to spend a little extra effort putting my clothes on, so what? The moment I started using my toes and my feet and my legs was the same moment I ceased to have a disability. I come home from the playground one day. My mom says, "Honey, good news, you're going to get arms, dear." I mean, you just remember a day like that, right? I thought we were going shopping, you know? Arms or us, I don't know. But I was very confused. They had hooks, and they were made of metal and plastic and wood. I mean, and I couldn't take off my shoes. I wasn't allowed to use my feet. Can you imagine how weird that was? So this became an interesting life. Half of my life was being Alvin Law, the kid with no arms. The other half of my life was this terrible victim of thalidomide.
I lost my sense of who I was, right? Stick these arms on me, I'm not Alvin Law anymore. You know, Alvin Law doesn't have any arms, artificial or not. And why would I need them? I mean, there was no good reason, not one good reason, to use them. And for years I told them, hey, these aren't doing me any good. And it was like, shut up. That was how blunt it was. You know, we know what we're doing. You don't.
Alvin Law's parents had run into opposition from the local grade school when they tried to enroll him.
School says, wait, he's got no arms. He can't go to this school. We don't have such a thing as integration. Mom and Dad are going, what's integration? He's a kid. He needs to go to school. He needs to learn. He needs to be educated. He can write. He can read. What else do you need?
The school finally agreed to take Alvin, but soon afterwards he ran into a reaction his teachers expected and feared.
I came home and I was very upset because somebody had called me crippled. And I'd never heard that word before. It was never used in this house, and it was never used in this neighborhood. But I go to school and there was new kids, and someone called me crippled, so I had to run home, and I was a little freaked out. You know, Mom calmed me down, and that's when I first remember hearing those words that some people are born with black hair and some people are born with blonde hair, and you were born without arms.
Alvin Law thrived in school, and by the time he was a teenager, he seemed to fit right in.
As far as the whole scene of school has been, I think that's the most important part, is being accepted by people. If you're not accepted, it won't be worth anything.
It was about acceptance, totally. And it was about asking 2 or 3 girls out on dates, to which I heard, "Are you kidding?" I wanted to date just like any 16-year-old, but I didn't have that good fortune. And of course, I used to blame it on the girls. And maybe it was partly them, but I know it was mostly me. My parents, they were the most practical people I think I've ever met in my entire life. So when it came to learning how to drive,
that was just practical. That way you can get around on your own. You don't have to depend on people to take care of you. You don't have to worry about, you know, taking a bus or using a cab. And it was really just about trying to figure it out. Anyway, I just love driving. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. Most people don't consider the power of my mind. And my mind is a very powerful tool. And it interjects all kinds of things into my system so that my feet are literally my hands. So when it comes to driving, I take it really seriously, and I have high expectations. Why can't I can drive with one foot on the wheel? What is people's excuse? They've got both hands and their feet, and yet they drive like shit. This doesn't make any sense to me.
So at this point, I do want to introduce my good buddy. He's become a good buddy, Timmy. Come on now.
Alvin Law found himself in the public limelight when he became his province's spokesman for handicapped children.
I can be what I think I am, at least I think I can, if you let me.
Over the years, Alvin would make appearances on telethons across the country.
At least I think I can, I think I can.
I'm not better than other handicapped people because I'm not a handicapped person. That's where people get it wrong, right? They look at Alvin Law and they think, God, it's tremendous how he can do things with his feet. Well, I suppose if you look at your feet, it's tremendous. But these are my feet. These are my hands too. And I have been doing it forever. These are not tremendous feet. These are the only thing that I've got. So when I pick up a cup and I have a drink, you know, oh, wow, what a thrill. That's not what it is. That's how I do things, you know?
Hey, I don't know what your lives are like. Sometimes life can really be rough on people. I understand that. I get it. I've been in real life.
Alvin Law is a motivational speaker who's influenced audiences in North America and Australia with his message of hope, especially to more than 2 million youngsters who've heard his talk.
Speaking is the best thing that I could have ever decided to do. You're helping kids, and they need to have somebody come in and tell them that it's going to be okay. But I get such tremendous joy out of doing it. There is nothing in my life that makes me happier than speaking to kids. Nothing.
And the next time you're ready to give up or quit or pack it in, well, if it helps even a little bit, remember the goofy-looking guy that played the drums with his feet. But remember the words I live by every day. There's no such word as can't. Thanks, and we'll see you again.
How many people can say that they can go out and speak to a group for an hour and have them actually, you can see the change. You can see the reflection. You can see the thought that's going on in their mind as to what they've just experienced.
Alvin travels over 100,000 miles a year on his own, but after 30 years on the road, his body is starting to wear out.
It takes its toll, you know, carrying that stuff around. I mean, you know, my body may not last as long as normal bodies do because of what I'm putting it through. I mean, as much as I make this look easy, I'm still putting my body through a lot of stuff. Just the pain in my back from carrying my luggage, and scar tissue in my shoulder from carrying a briefcase for 35 years. And, you know, there's not really a shoulder here. So what I'm carrying it with, I shouldn't be doing this. I should have like a Sherpa or something. Hey, how does a guy without arms function on the road all by himself? I carry my own luggage with straps. I check into hotels all on my own. I rent cars. All right, my keys, there you go. Thank you, boss. Right in my toes, thank you. Now, why do I rent cars? It's just how I prefer to function. I don't do cabs, because strangely, they don't stop when you go. I'm still tromping around, going to airports, checking into hotels, eating bad food, driving everywhere in the middle of nowhere, getting involved in blizzards and swearing at my wife for putting me out yet in another life and death situation and not thinking I'm getting paid enough. See what I mean? I can get on a rant. But at the end of the day, she also says this line. This is a wonderful line. Honey, if you're tired of traveling, I'm sure there's a cubicle with your name written on it in a windowless office somewhere in the middle of nowhere for a mundane job that you'd hate in 5 minutes. And then it goes away.
When his first wife, Sandy, became pregnant, Alvin Law was terrified about what the future held.
When I saw him come out of there with 2 arms and 2 hands and 5 little fingers on each hand, I didn't care what brand he was at all. I didn't care if it was a she or a he or an it. It didn't matter. And it was just the most tremendous feeling. It was my son.
You want to do it again? Okay, here we go. Can you throw it back?
I worried a lot about how I was going to play ball with him, and how I was going to how could I teach him, to golf and teach him to play frisbee and teach him to throw, all those things that you want to have a kid of yours do. You don't have to have arms to be a father. You don't need arms to love him. You don't need arms to be there. You don't need arms to listen. You don't need arms to be a father at all. And unfortunately, too many fathers that have arms don't realize that. Never forget that, and that's true. You just have to be there for him.
What's he over there far across the lake? What's he doing? That surprised me. The tears, I don't know, I'm not sad, I'm just, wow. He's big now. He was little then. Yeah, boy, I miss that little boy sometimes, but that's not how life works, right?
He's a normal, regular person. He's got the same regular personality. There's nothing really wrong about it. And you just have to know him, and you can't just judge him by the way he looks.
What he brings and what he gives is much more so than anything arms could bring. He gives great, fatherly advice, and he's a great role model. He's a great person. And that's all you can ask.
I remember thinking, 28 years old, divorced, got a kid, losing my hair, gaining a gut, have no arms, what a package. And then I got to thinking, I've got to change this.
That's how Alvin introduced himself to his future wife, Darlene, who was sitting in the audience one day.
That conference was the first time I heard him speak, and it actually, believe it or not, sounds corny, but it was a life-changing event for me. I was in the process of considering making a final decision about a rather unhappy marriage. I thought, yeah, he's right. Life is too short. I have to make decisions for myself.
I mean, anybody that sees her for the first time can't miss that smile and just absolutely melt. And I melted. I have friends who tell me that I smiled more the day of my wedding than they've ever seen me smile in my entire life, and it was permanently glued there for days. That was the beginning of the joy. It ended in that ring going on that finger, and it's still there today. You can't even describe it. It's like all these years of angst and frustration just melted away in 5 minutes.
You still love him?
I do. He's kind of gross on you. Life is never...
She's past her best before date, so she's got no choice. She's got to stick with me now. There's no option.
Yeah, but he did. Yeah, I don't stop traffic anymore. No, we had our ups and our downs, and we've had some highs and a lot of lows, just like anybody else, but it just keeps getting better. I know it sounds cliche, but it's getting easier and better and more fun.
There's a lot of credit that I get for doing this, but I didn't just do this. I had my parents first, I had my teachers second, and then I had her. And those 3 elements of my life they've really been what has supplied the fuel for what drives me.
Click on screen for more videos of extraordinary humans.